All right, I'm going to run through the basic features of the mixer stations themselves now. Again, I'm not going to cover absolutely everything because the manual is excellent and that's easy to download from the internet. But I will show the basic hookups. As I mentioned before, you can have up to 2 sets of headphones using the same station. And there's a really nice feature in the back here with the way they've strung the cable along so that you can have this thing either sit flat on a surface like a tabletop, or you can use the threads there to hook it up to a mic stand with a standard mount. So we've got 2 headphones that you can use coming at the same time, coming out. You've also got a left and a right line out if you need to set the signals to another system, another piece of gear further down the chain, and if you hook up one channel just to the left, it's in mono. And then we've got the aux input here, which is a stereo aux in, again for things like a click track or anything you might want to be using. Now, the way this thing is laid out is you've actually got 4 sets of stereo channels. The first one here is the stereo master, that's 1 and 2, and it has a single control for those 2 channels that are coming in stereo. So the typical setup you might want to do is sort of put your main mix there and then use everything else for your more me. But we will probably put the drums here because we're going to be able to kind of do a stereo premix of the drums and use that for the master and then send all the individual pieces out to their own individual channels. But the great thing is you can do it any way you want and then have people adjust accordingly. So there's a lot of flexibility here, and again the manual talks a lot about that. So there's our stereo master. Next we've got 3 sets of left and right basically, and if you leave them as they are by default, they are all in mono, so you've got your stereo master plus these other 6 channels of individual control that you've got. Now, if you hit the link button on any of those 3 pairs, that will link the 2 in stereo and split them hard left and right. So the inputs are hard left and right, but you can determine how wide that stereo spread is between them at your source when you're sending them out. So you either have 4 stereo mixes or you've got 1 stereo mix and then 6 additional monos. Now this knob down here is for a limiter, and this is basically to protect your hearing or whatever else you might be daisy chaining this to, maybe through the left and right outputs. So as you turn the limiter down, it sets the threshold of where it's going to basically cut off and hard limit the signal so it doesn't get any louder. So we'll try that out today, see how that works, but it goes all the way down to minus 50 dB for a threshold and all the way up to 0, which basically means the limiter is off. Not a bad feature, especially I suspect in live environments where you might not have a lot of control over those extremely high transients. And last but not least, you've got a master volume control here that allows you to control the overall volume of everything once you've got the mix. So that's it. Again, very simple but very flexible. There's a lot of things you can do with this, many ways you can configure it, but it doesn't take rocket science to learn how to use the thing. Again, I read through the manual for a few minutes and got the gist of everything pretty quickly. So we're going to go set it up, try it out, and see what happens. All right, here we are at our first session with the Hearback system. We're going to crank this puppy up, give it a listen, and see how it goes. All righty, here goes nothing. All right, we got the Hearback. All right, I'm going to be adjusting a couple of things here. 1, 2, 1. Well, we've completed our session for the evaluation of the Hearback system, and I have to say it absolutely performed fabulously for us. Before I make some final comments here, I'm going to get some comments from the rest of the guys here and see what they thought of the system, and I'll be back with a final note or two in a moment. All right, we've got the inimitable drummer extraordinaire, Ron Krasinski here.
Oh yeah, that's crystal clear.
There you
Very
go.
nice. Inspiring sound.
So, yeah, right. This is the first time you've used the hearback system, right?
Yeah, it sounds great.
And
it's very clean and very clear, and I have control, obviously, but the sounds are great.
Cool. Any setup issues, or did it take long to get used to, or anything like that?
Nope. Just a matter of learning what knob does what, and there we go. We're off and running.
Cool.
But the sound is great. Good work, guys.
Excellent.
Inspiring sound.
We are here with Bruce Brown, the slide meister of the planet here, along with a whole lot of other wonderful guitar chops. This is the first time you've used the hearback system today, right?
Yeah, sounds great.
And you've used our system in here before.
Yep.
How does it compare in your view?
I'll tell you what, it was a lot cleaner today. Frankly, it was a lot cleaner.
Cool.
Yeah.
I won't take offense, I promise.
No, it just made cutting the tracks easier.
Did you find it easy to find stuff and dial it in?
Yeah, because that was me right there.
Oh, that's it.
That's my button.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's the button that counts, right?
Yeah, we were just a trio today, so it was bass, drums. Yeah, it was simple, you know.
Bass, drums,
yeah,
click. We decided to put the drums in
yeah.
there and the master stereo mix.
Yeah, I had 4 knobs. You know what? Even I can handle 4
Yeah,
knobs.
that's right. And did it take any time for us to get set up and going, or did you just kind of plug in your headphones?
That's
and
what I was going to say. For me, it took this long. Hey, Fett, hand me some phones. I plugged them in and dialed in these. You taped them up here and said, "There's your mix." And no, it took about 60 seconds.
Cool. I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, brother. Appreciate
it.
Well, if Ron and Bruce are any indication, they really like the system, as did I. I was the bass player on the session today, and I have to say I haven't heard bass like that in a headphone monitoring system ever in a studio before. There was a very, very rich low end. It was really full. I could hear myself as a player like I never have before. I think it made me play better. I know I enjoyed the session more, and it just really made the whole experience much, much better than I'm used to. It took maybe 10 minutes to set up the system this morning to get all the ADAT outputs from our computer interface and all the other cables hooked up, and we got ready to go. And it was super easy to use. I even found myself reaching over at times when I was holding out a note on the bass and making an adjustment on the hearback because it was that easy to do. I would like to interject some comments about 3 things you might want to know about. The first one is that the digital inputs on the hearback are 44.1 or 48K. So if you want to go digital and you're working at rates of 96 or something like that, you're either going to have to downsample from 96K, for example, to 48, or you're just going to need to go analog. The second thing is the unit itself, the hub unit, runs a little bit hot. So after we were done with our session, I noticed the temperature on the outside of the chassis, even though we had it sitting out here on the open, was pretty warm. And they do talk about this in the manual. They just recommend that you have sufficient ventilation in a rack and don't put it next to power amps and that kind of thing. So you just have to be aware of that. And the third thing is very interesting. We tried out the limiter and kind of had mixed results as far as the sonics go. The further down we turned the limiter, the more it kind of trashed the sound. And again, they address that in the manual, and they say that the limiter is designed to protect your hearing, and if you get extreme with it and don't set it at the very top where just the peaks are, you're going to have a loss of audio quality, and that's what we experienced. But the really cool news is I did a little research on the internet, and there's actually an option for people who work in studios and don't really need the limiter as much to protect their hearing as you would on stage with all the ambient noise and everything else going on. It's called Option 8, and it's a modification that they can make to the hearback mixer that allows that knob that controls the limiter to be bypassed basically and become the right-hand side of the input 1 and 2. In other words, as it comes out of the box, you've got one stereo control for input 1 and 2 on a standard hearback mixer. But if you do this Option 8 modification, you actually get to split it into 2, like you do with the other pairs on the mixer, and have the left knob control number 1 and the right knob control number 2. So you've really got now 8 independent mono sources if you want to, rather than 1 stereo and 6 independent monos. So that's a really cool thing. You can look it up on the internet if you're interested. So those are the only additional comments I wanted to make before I wrap things up. If I had to pick maybe one final comment, I couldn't think of a better compliment than to say the system was so good that it really showed the flaws of what we have here now that we've used all these years, and I'm really going to be sad to see the system go. So much so that I'm going to have to seriously consider replacing our existing system with a hear back.